I wasn't asleep when the phone rang. Winter nights in Ashley had a way of keeping a man awake, especially when the old coal stove needed tending. My father used to say the stove had a soul, that if you listened close enough, you could hear it breathe. I never put much stock in things like that, but I still found myself standing in front of it at odd hours, watching the embers shift, listening to the crackle of burning coal like it had something to say. The phone jolted me out of my trance. It was Finn. "Ethan," he said, voice rough like he'd been chain-smoking through his shift. "I need a favor." Now, Finn wasn't the kind of man to ask for favors. He was the type who handled his business, a tow truck driver who'd seen more wrecks than a highway patrolman. So when he called me at nearly midnight, I knew something wasn't right. I sighed, already regretting picking up. "What kind of favor?" "There's a woman," he said. "Her car's dead on the county road. Won't start. She's desperate to get to Ashley before morning. Then tow her to a damn mechanic." "She ain't asking for a mechanic, Ethan. She needs a ride." I almost laughed. "You run a tow truck, not a taxi." "I know. But she's real upset. And, look man, I don't feel right leaving her out here alone." Finn hesitated, which put me on edge. "You just gotta see for yourself." Something in his tone made me pause. Finn wasn't a nervous guy. If he thought this woman was trouble, then she probably was. I ran a hand over my face. "Where are you?" "County Road 6. Near the old steel bridge." "Give me 10 minutes." I hung up, grabbed my coat, and stepped out into the night. The wind cut through my jacket as I pulled up beside Finn's truck. His headlights cast long shadows over the road, making the woman's stranded car look like some abandoned relic in the snow. She was standing beside Finn's truck, arms wrapped tight around herself, looking like she belonged in a place far warmer than here. Dark coat, expensive boots, and a face that said she was used to getting what she wanted. Finn waved me over. "Ethan, this is Anna." Up close, she looked colder than the night itself. Sharp features, unreadable eyes. Not the type of woman you'd expect to be stranded on a back road in the middle of nowhere. She looked me over, unimpressed. "You're the one giving me a ride?" I shrugged. "Depends. Where you headed?" "Ashley." She said it like there was no room for argument. Ashley was a 30-mile drive through winding roads and thick woods. No hotels, no gas stations open this late, just a single boarding school sitting like a ghost on the edge of town. I narrowed my eyes. "What's in Ashley?" Anna hesitated. "My niece." The way she said it made me take a second look. Her face was set, but there was something else, something behind her eyes. Worry? Fear? I couldn't tell. Finn sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Look, Ethan, I wouldn't have called if I had another option. But she's got no one else to help." Anna straightened. "I can pay you." That irritated me more than it should have. "I don't need your money." "Then what do you need?" she shot back. I stared at her for a long second, then exhaled. "Fine. Let's go." Anna didn't waste time. She grabbed a small bag from her car, nodded once to Finn, then climbed into my truck like she already regretted the decision. I looked at Finn. "You sure about this?" He gave me a tight smile. "Drive safe." I had a feeling that was his way of saying, "Watch your back." As I pulled onto the road, Anna kept her gaze fixed forward, hands clenched in her lap. She was hiding something. And whatever it was, I had a feeling it wasn't good. Finn let out a sigh, like he already knew I wasn't going to like what he had to say. "I got a woman stranded out on Route 6, he said. "Her car's busted, and she's in a hurry to get to Ashley." Ashley was an hour away, maybe more with the snow coming down the way it was. I pinched the bridge of my nose, already feeling the headache setting in. "Call a cab," I muttered. "Already tried. No one's coming out this late. And, she ain't exactly the patient type." I glanced at the clock, 1:17 a.m. "Who is she?" "Some banker lady," Finn said. "Rich. Got that look like she don't take no for an answer. She's trying to get to her niece at that fancy boarding school." That got my attention. The school in Ashley wasn't the kind you sent kids to for a better education. It was the kind of place wealthy families used to hide their problems. "Why can't she wait until morning?" Finn hesitated. She's desperate, man. Kept saying she needs to get there tonight. Said it's an emergency, but she wouldn't say what kind. I rubbed my face. This had trouble written all over it. But Finn had helped me out more times than I could count, and I wasn't the type to leave someone stranded in a snowstorm. Where are you? I asked. Half a mile past the old gas station. I'll be here. I sighed. Fine. I'm coming. I grabbed my coat, my truck keys, and my gut feeling that this night was about to go sideways fast. By the time I pulled up, Finn was leaning against his tow truck, hands stuffed into his coat pockets. Snow piled up around his boots. A sleek black car sat nearby, half buried in slush. The driver's door was open, and a woman stood beside it, arms crossed tight over her chest. She didn't look at me right away. Just kept staring down the road like she could will Ashley closer by sheer force. Ethan, meet Anna, Finn said, jerking his thumb toward her. Anna, this is the guy crazy enough to be out here at this hour. She turned then, and I got my first real look at her. Tall, slim, the kind of woman who looked like she belonged in a glass office overlooking a city, not freezing on the side of a road in the middle of nowhere. Her dark coat was expensive, her boots spotless. Well, they had been before tonight. Now she just looked out of place. You're late, she said. I raised a brow. Didn't know I was on a schedule. She frowned, clearly not amused. Can we just go? I looked at Finn, who just shrugged like, don't look at me, buddy. I sighed. Get in. She grabbed a small leather bag from her car, locked the doors like someone was going to rob it out here, and climbed into my truck without another word. Drive safe, Finn called as I got in. I just shook my head, started the engine, and pulled onto the road. Anna sat stiffly beside me, like even the act of being in my truck was beneath her. I wasn't much for small talk, but something about her silence made the truck feel colder. After a few miles, I finally asked, so, what's in Ashley that can't wait till morning? She exhaled sharply. My niece. I waited for more, but she just stared out the window. Something wrong. She hesitated. I don't know yet. I didn't like the sound of that. The snow kept falling, thick and steady, blanketing the road in white. My headlights carved through the darkness, but the farther we got from town, the quieter it felt, just the hum of the engine and the rhythmic swish of the wipers. Anna hadn't said much since her vague answer about her niece. Just sat there, tense, fingers twisting the strap of her bag. I wasn't in the mood for conversation, but something about her made it hard to ignore the silence. People didn't act like this unless something was really wrong. You want to tell me what we're walking into? I asked. She shifted, finally looking at me. Her eyes were sharp, like she was measuring whether she could trust me. I haven't been able to reach Amelia, she said. The school told me she's fine, but, she shook her head. Something's off. How long's it been since you heard from her? A week. I frowned. And the school ain't giving you a straight answer? They said she got her phone taken away, Anna said. That she was acting out again. But I know my niece. She would have found a way to get in touch. I mulled that over. Kids at that boarding school were sent there for a reason. Behavioral problems, family troubles, things rich people didn't want to deal with. Maybe Amelia really was acting out. Or maybe Anna had every right to be worried. So what's the plan? I asked. I get there, I see her, and I make sure she's okay. Something about the way she said it made me think she didn't expect that to be easy. You think they're lying to you? I think they're hiding something. I tightened my grip on the wheel. I didn't know this woman, didn't owe her a damn thing, but something about this whole situation felt wrong. Whatever we were driving toward, I had a bad feeling we weren't ready for it. We drove in silence for a while after that. The roads were getting worse, snow piling up, ice slicking over the pavement. I had to keep both hands tight on the wheel just to stay steady. Anna, for her part, was still stiff as a board, staring out the window like she was expecting something to jump out of the dark. You ever been to this school before? I asked. She nodded, but didn't look at me. Once. When my sister first sent Amelia there. How bad was she? Anna finally turned her head. She's not bad, she said, voice sharper than before. She's a kid. A smart one, but stubborn. She acts out because, she stopped herself, exhaling. Because life hasn't been easy for her. I let that sit. What about you? She asked suddenly. What about me? She glanced at me, then back at the road. Finn said you don't usually do favors for people. Especially strangers. Finn talks too much. That got the faintest hint of a smirk. So why'd you agree? I thought about that for a second. Seemed like you needed help. She studied me for a moment like she was trying to figure out if that was the truth. I wasn't sure myself. Then, just as I was about to push her for more, something up ahead caught my eye. A shape in the road. I hit the brakes, and the truck skidded slightly before coming to a stop. The headlights lit up what looked like a fallen tree, blocking both lanes. Anna sat up straighter. What is that? I narrowed my eyes. Something felt off. The branches weren't scattered like they'd fallen naturally. It looked placed. Stay here, I said, reaching for the flashlight in my glove box. Anna grabbed my arm. Wait. This doesn't feel right. I looked at her, surprised at the sudden urgency in her voice. And then I heard it. The sound of movement. Somewhere in the trees beside us. We weren't alone. I didn't like this. The way the tree sat in the road, it was too neat, too deliberate. Snow was still coming down hard, but it hadn't covered the trunk like it should have if it had been there a while. Someone put it there. Recently. Anna must have picked up on my tension because she whispered, "Get back in the truck." I heard the sound again. Footsteps, just beyond the reach of my headlights. Someone was out there. I kept my hand near the knife I kept in the door panel. Lock the doors, I told her. Then I stepped out, flashlight in one hand, knife ready in the other. The cold hit me instantly, sharp and bitter. The snow crunched under my boots as I took a few slow steps forward, shining the light over the fallen tree. That's when I saw them. Two figures, half hidden in the trees, barely more than shadows against the snow. One moved slightly, shifting his weight. I could tell he was big, bigger than me. My stomach clenched. "Evening," I called out, keeping my voice calm. "Tree come down on you fellas too." Silence. Then one of them stepped forward, just enough for the light to catch his face. A man in a heavy coat, rough beard, eyes watching me too closely. "Truck won't make it through," he said, voice flat. "You need a hand moving it?" I knew that tone. It was the kind of voice that said, "I already know how this plays out." I flicked my light to the side, just quick enough to catch something glinting in the other man's hand. A tire iron. This wasn't a rescue. It was a setup. I took a slow step back, keeping my eyes on them. "Appreciate it," I said, keeping my tone light. "But I think we'll turn around." That's when the second man lunged. I barely saw him move before he swung the tire iron straight for my head. Instinct took over. I ducked just in time, feeling the rush of air as the tire iron whistled past my head. Before he could swing again, I drove my shoulder into his gut, knocking him backward into the snow. The other guy was already moving. I caught a glimpse of him lunging toward me, something sharp in his hand, a knife. I barely had time to react. I twisted, felt a searing pain as the blade grazed my side. Not deep, but enough to sting. My grip tightened on my own knife, and I slashed out in response, aiming low. The guy jumped back, but not fast enough. My blade cut through his coat, and he let out a curse, stumbling in the snow. The first man was already scrambling to his feet, but before he could reach for his weapon, I kicked the tire iron away, sending it skidding across the ice. The second guy, the one with the knife, took a step back, reassessing. He hadn't expected me to fight back. That hesitation gave me just enough time to back toward my truck, keeping my knife up between us. "Not worth it," I growled. "Walk away." For a second, I thought they might. The two men exchanged glances. Snow fell in thick, heavy flakes between us, our breath steaming in the cold air. Then one of them lunged again. This time, I was ready. I sidestepped, grabbed his coat, and used his own momentum to throw him off balance. He slipped on the ice, hitting the ground hard. His buddy hesitated just long enough for me to take another step back, close to the truck now. That's when I heard Anna's voice. "Ethan. Behind you." I turned just in time to see a third man, one I hadn't noticed before, charging out of the trees. But before he could reach me, I heard the unmistakable click of a gun being cocked. Anna stood in the open truck door, my old revolver in her hands, aimed straight at him. "Try it," she said, voice steady as a rock. The man froze. Silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. The two men still on their feet looked at the gun, then back at me. I could see them weighing their options. They hadn't expected us to fight back, and they sure as hell hadn't expected a gun. The man closest to me let out a breath. "Ain't worth it." And just like that, they turned and melted back into the woods, disappearing into the night. I stood there for a second, chest heaving, my side burning from the shallow cut. My breath came in ragged puffs, but I didn't take my eyes off the tree in the road. Anna slowly lowered the gun. "You okay?" she asked. I exhaled, forcing myself to relax. "Yeah." I wiped the blood off my side with my sleeve. "Looks worse than it is." She climbed down from the truck, looking at the tree. "What do we do now?" I glanced back at the road. "We move it." Anna frowned. "You think they're gone for good?" I didn't answer. Because the truth was, I didn't know. Something about this felt too calculated. Too planned. 3 men, setting up a fake roadblock in the middle of a snowstorm? It wasn't a random mugging. They were expecting someone. The question was it us? And if so, why? Anna kept the gun in her hand as I stepped toward the fallen tree. I wasn't sure she even realized she was still gripping it, her knuckles white against the metal. She looked calm, but I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her breath came sharp and quick. "You ever use one of those before?" I asked. She flicked a glance at me. "Yes." Something in her tone told me not to ask more. I crouched beside the tree, testing its weight. It wasn't massive, but it was too heavy to move alone. The cut along my side ached as I braced myself. "Help me push," I said. Anna hesitated for only a second before slipping the gun into her coat pocket and stepping beside me. Together, we shoved, the wood scraping against the ice. It was slow work, but inch by inch, we managed to clear just enough space for the truck to squeeze through. When it was done, we stood there for a moment, catching our breath. Snow clung to our clothes, our boots sinking into the frozen ground. I glanced around, scanning the darkness. Nothing. No sign of the men. But I didn't like it. People like that didn't just give up. "Let's go," I said, nodding toward the truck. Anna climbed in first. I slid behind the wheel, gripping it tight as I eased the truck forward, careful over the slick patches of ice. The truck's tires crunched over the packed snow, and we crept through the narrow gap we'd cleared. The second we passed the tree, I pressed the gas a little harder. Anna kept her eyes on the side mirror. "You think they'll follow us?" "If they do, they'll regret it." She didn't argue. For a long stretch, neither of us spoke. I kept my focus on the road, the snow making it damn near impossible to see more than a few feet ahead. Anna sat rigid beside me, her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold something in. Then, out of nowhere, she said, "This wasn't random." I glanced at her. "You sure about that?" "Yes." Her voice was firm. They weren't just looking to rob someone. That was planned. Organized. I thought about the way they'd set up the tree, the way they moved, like they'd done this before. She wasn't wrong. "Then the question is," I said slowly, "were they after you or me?" She swallowed hard but didn't answer. And that was the part that worried me most. We drove in silence for a while, the tension thick as the snow piling up outside. The road ahead was nothing but a dark tunnel of white, my headlights barely cutting through the storm. Every so often, I checked the mirror, half expecting to see headlights behind us. But nothing. Anna hadn't moved much since the run-in with those men. She sat stiff, her arms wrapped around herself, fingers digging into her sleeves. But her mind was working. I could see it in the way her eyes flickered over the road, the way her jaw stayed tight. "They were waiting for someone," she said suddenly. I nodded. Seemed that way. But for who? That was the million-dollar question. The way I saw it, there were 2 options. Either those men had been out there looking for easy prey, or they had been looking for us. And the way they moved, the way they had planned that roadblock? I was leaning toward the second option. "You think they knew you'd be on this road tonight?" I asked. She hesitated, like she didn't want to answer. Then, finally, she exhaled. Maybe. I shot her a sideways glance. You want to explain what that means? She shifted in her seat. I don't know for sure. But I have enemies. I let that sit for a second. Enemies. I repeated. That's a strong word. Anna turned her head toward me, and for the first time since she got in my truck, I saw something crack in that perfect, composed mask she wore. I work in banking, she said. Private clients. The kind of people who don't like surprises. That told me everything I needed to know. Rich people. Money. Secrets. So what? Somebody's mad at you. She looked out the window, her fingers tightening around the edge of her coat. Some people don't take no for an answer. I didn't like the sound of that. You think they'd go after Amelia? I asked. Her expression darkened. I don't know. But I can't risk it. That was all I needed to hear. I pressed my foot down on the gas. The truck rumbled forward, tires biting into the ice-covered road. Whatever was waiting for us in Ashley, we needed to get there now. But just as I started to feel like we were putting distance between ourselves and whatever mess we'd left behind, the dashboard lights flickered. The engine sputtered. Then, just like that, the truck started losing speed. I swore under my breath, pumping the gas pedal. No, don't do this to me now. Anna sat up straighter. What's wrong? The truck's losing power. She looked at me, wide-eyed. You think someone? I didn't want to say it. But deep down, I already knew. This wasn't an accident. Someone had messed with my truck. The truck sputtered again, jerking forward before losing power entirely. The headlights flickered once more, then cut out, leaving us in near darkness. The only sound was the wind howling outside and the steady hiss of snow hitting the windshield. I gritted my teeth and cranked the key. The engine groaned, but wouldn't turn over. Anna's breath came quick. Try again. I didn't need her to tell me. I twisted the key again, but the damn thing was dead. My truck, had never let me down before. Not once. The fact that it chose this moment to quit? That wasn't bad luck. That was intentional. Pop the hood, Anna said, already reaching for the door handle. Wait. I grabbed her wrist before she could get out. You don't just step out in the middle of nowhere after what just happened. She stiffened but nodded. I reached for my flashlight again, double-checked the knife in my coat, then pulled the handle and stepped out. The cold hit me like a slap. My boots sank into fresh snow as I rounded the front of the truck and lifted the hood. What I saw made my stomach tighten. Wires. Cut clean. Somebody had gotten under my truck and sabotaged it. I let out a slow breath, pushing down the urge to swear. This wasn't random. Those men back at the roadblock? That was a distraction. Someone didn't want us getting to Ashley. I felt Anna step beside me, close enough that I could see the way her breath fogged in the cold air. She looked at the wires and let out a slow curse under her breath. How long to fix it? I shook my head. Not out here. Not in this cold. She turned, scanning the woods around us. The snow was thick, the trees dense, shadows shifting in the wind. So what do we do? I shut the hood, thinking fast. We don't stay here. She looked at me sharply. You want to walk? In this? You got a better idea? She opened her mouth, then closed it. Truth was, we didn't have a choice. Sitting here in a dead truck was asking for trouble. If those men, or whoever was behind this, were out there, they wouldn't just let us sit and wait for help. I reached into the truck, grabbed my old army backpack from the back seat. Always kept it stocked with supplies, flashlight, extra gloves, some energy bars, and most importantly, my dad's old revolver. I checked the chamber. 5 bullets. Not much, but better than nothing. I tucked it into my coat and turned back to Anna. You warm enough? I asked. She gave me a look like I was stupid. It's below freezing. I sighed and unzipped the bag, pulling out an extra scarf and gloves. She hesitated, but took them. We head toward Ashley, I said, adjusting the straps on the bag. Main road's too risky, so we take the tree line. Less chance of being spotted. She swallowed hard. And if they're already out there? I met her eyes. Then we don't stop moving. She nodded, pressing her lips into a thin line. Then, without another word, we stepped off the road and into the trees. The wind tore through the branches, sending flurries of snow into our faces as we trudged forward. The ground was uneven, thick with drifts in some spots, icy patches in others. It made every step feel like a battle. Anna stayed close behind me, her breaths coming fast. She wasn't built for this, city woman, all polish and high heels. But she wasn't complaining. "How much farther?" she asked after a while. "Couple miles," I said. "Maybe more." She muttered something under her breath, but I couldn't hear it over the wind. We walked for what felt like forever, the cold gnawing at our bones. Every so often, I stopped listening, watching. But nothing moved except for the snow. Then, just as we crested a small hill, Anna grabbed my arm. "Look," she whispered. I followed her gaze. Down below, through a gap in the trees, I saw headlights. 2 sets. Maybe 3. Parked on the main road, not moving. Waiting. My stomach sank. "They were expecting us," Anna whispered. I clenched my fists. No. They weren't expecting us. They were hunting us. The headlights didn't move. Just sat there, engines humming softly beneath the wind. 3 vehicles. Maybe more. I couldn't make out details through the snowfall, but I knew one thing for sure: whoever was in those cars wasn't here to help. Anna must have come to the same conclusion. I could hear her breathing pick up, quick and shallow. I crouched lower, pulling her down with me behind the cover of a snow-laden tree. "Stay still," I whispered. She didn't argue. For a long moment, we just listened. The wind howled through the trees, rattling branches, making the snow swirl in every direction. But underneath it, I heard something else. Footsteps. Not from the road. From the woods. I turned my head slowly, scanning the tree line. My pulse pounded in my ears. It wasn't just the guys in the trucks, we had company up here too. I reached for the revolver, gripping it tight. 5 bullets. If things went bad, that wasn't going to be enough. Anna tensed beside me. I could feel her hands gripping her coat, her breath coming out in short puffs of steam. Then, through the trees, a figure moved. Dark coat. Heavy boots. The man from before. He was scanning the woods, head turning slowly, methodically. Looking for us. Anna's grip tightened on my sleeve. I barely glanced at her, but I could tell she was trying not to panic. I leaned in close. "Listen to me," I whispered. "When I say go, we run. Stay low, keep behind me." She swallowed, nodding. The man took a few more slow steps, then stopped. He turned his head, listening. My muscles tensed. I shifted my foot just slightly. And then Anna moved. Not much. Just a slight adjustment, maybe to brace herself. But it was enough. Her boot scraped against an icy patch of ground. The sound was small. Barely there. But the man's head snapped toward us. For a split second, everything froze. Then, he reached for something under his coat. A gun. I didn't wait. Run. Anna bolted. I was right behind her, feet pounding against the frozen ground, the cold air burning in my lungs. A gunshot cracked through the night. The echo snapped through the trees, sharp as lightning. Anna let out a choked gasp, stumbling forward. "Are you hit?" I shouted, grabbing her arm to steady her. And no, just slipped. I yanked her forward. "Keep moving." Branches whipped past us, snow spraying up around our feet as we sprinted through the woods. I could hear shouting behind us now, more than one voice. They weren't giving up. Anna was breathing hard, her steps uneven, but she pushed forward. Up ahead, through the trees, I spotted it. A break in the woods. A field. I grabbed her wrist and pulled her faster. Almost there. We burst out into the clearing, our boots sinking into deep snow. The sky was open here, moonlight bouncing off the icy landscape. We had no cover. Behind us, the men were closing in. I pulled Anna down behind a fallen log, pressing my back against the rough bark. She crouched beside me, gasping for air, her hair wild and dusted with snow. I peeked over the log. 2 figures moved at the tree line. One of them raised a gun. I ducked just as another shot rang out. Anna flinched, hands clamped over her ears. What do we do? I clenched my jaw. My options were running out fast. We couldn't outrun them forever. And if we didn't do something soon, we wouldn't make it to Ashley at all. We were pinned. The men were closing in, their dark shapes barely visible through the swirling snow. We had no cover beyond the fallen log, and out in the open, we'd be easy targets. Anna clutched my sleeve, her breath coming out in shaky bursts. We can't just sit here. She was right. They weren't firing blindly anymore. They were taking their time, creeping closer. They didn't want to kill us outright. They wanted us alive. And that was worse. I turned to her, keeping my voice low. How fast can you run? She blinked, startled. Not fast enough. I scanned the field, my mind racing. There, off to the right, a slope leading down to what looked like a frozen creek. It wasn't much, but if we made it there, we could use the trees for cover, maybe lose them in the terrain. I gripped her wrist. We make for that ridge. You don't stop, don't look back. She hesitated. And you? I'll be right behind you. Another gunshot cracked through the air. The bullet hit the log, splintering wood near my shoulder. No more time. Go. Anna took off, her boots slipping in the snow before she found her footing. I pushed up from the log, raising my revolver. 2 men at the tree line. I fired once, missed. Adjusted. Fired again. The shot hit one of them in the leg. He collapsed with a yell, clutching his thigh. The other hesitated, just for a second. That was all I needed. I turned and ran after Anna. Snow crunched under my boots as I sprinted, my breath burning in the cold air. The ridge was close, just a few more yards. Then I heard it. A vehicle. An engine roaring to life. I turned my head, and my stomach dropped. One of the trucks had pulled onto the field, headlights cutting through the storm. And it was coming straight for us. Anna, move. She saw it too. She scrambled faster, slipping as she hit the ridge and half falling down the slope. I was right behind her, diving just as the truck's tires skidded over the spot we'd been standing. We tumbled down the ridge, snow flying up around us. I hit the ground hard, the impact knocking the wind out of me. Anna landed a few feet away, gasping, struggling to get up. Above us, the truck skidded to a stop. Doors slammed. They were coming. Anna reached for my arm. Ethan. No time. I pulled her up. We keep moving. She nodded, teeth clenched against the cold. We turned and ran. The frozen creek stretched ahead, a narrow path winding through the trees. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. We followed it, our boots slipping on the ice, breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind us, I heard shouting. More voices now. They were spreading out, trying to cut us off. Anna glanced at me, panic in her eyes. They're everywhere. I tightened my grip on the revolver. Let them come. We weren't going down without a fight. The frozen creek stretched ahead, a winding ribbon of ice cutting through the woods. Anna and I ran, our steps slipping against the slick surface, breath coming in sharp, ragged gasps. My lungs burned from the cold, but I didn't slow down. Couldn't. The shouts behind us were getting closer. More of them now. Whoever these men were, they weren't just some random thugs. This was organized. They moved with purpose, spreading out, boxing us in. I glanced back. Flashlights bobbed through the trees, their beams cutting through the snowfall. Anna was breathing hard, struggling to keep pace. She wasn't built for this, not for running through snow-covered woods in the dead of night, not for dodging bullets and hiding from God knows who. But she wasn't giving up. Up ahead, the creek took a sharp turn. A jagged rock face loomed in the distance, rising up from the frozen ground like a wall. My stomach clenched. Dead end. Anna must have realized it too because she cursed under her breath. Where now? I scanned the area fast, mind racing. The trees were too thin to hide in. Doubling back wasn't an option. The only real cover was there. I pointed toward a narrow gap in the rock face, barely visible in the snow. It looked like the entrance to a small cave or a hollowed-out section of stone. Anna hesitated. Are you sure? No. I grabbed her wrist and pulled. But we don't have a choice. We sprinted for the opening just as another gunshot cracked through the night. The bullet hit the ice behind us, sending a spray of shattered frost into the air. We dove into the hollow, pressing our backs against the cold rock. It wasn't much, just a shallow indentation, barely enough to hide us. But in this storm, with the darkness thick around us, it might be enough. Anna was shivering, hugging her arms to her chest. They're going to find us. Not if we stay quiet. I gripped the revolver tighter, listening. The wind howled, covering some of the noise, but I could hear them. Footsteps crunching in the snow. Low voices murmuring to each other. They were close. Too close. Anna's breathing was fast and uneven, her body tense beside mine. I reached over, gripping her hand briefly. She flinched but didn't pull away. One of the men spoke, his voice carrying over the wind. They went this way. Another answered, gruff and annoyed. They're boxed in. Just spread out. We'll flush them out soon enough. I swallowed hard. This wasn't a simple chase anymore. They knew we were trapped. And they were going to make sure we had nowhere left to run. The voices outside grew closer. Heavy boots crunched through the snow, the men spreading out as they searched. I tightened my grip on the revolver, my pulse pounding so hard I could hear it over the wind. Anna was shaking beside me, not from the cold this time, but from the same raw, biting fear tightening in my gut. She pressed herself against the rock wall, her breath coming in small, quiet bursts. A flashlight beam swept across the entrance of our hiding spot. We both went completely still. The light lingered for a moment, then moved away. I exhaled slowly, barely making a sound. They couldn't have gone far, one of the men muttered. Check the ridge, another voice ordered. Make sure they didn't double back. Footsteps shuffled in the snow. Some of them were moving away. But one was getting closer. I tensed. A shadow moved in front of the cave's opening. Anna's fingers dug into my sleeve. I didn't move, didn't breathe. If they spotted us, we were done. The man hesitated, scanning the area. He took another step, the barrel of his rifle catching the faintest gleam of moonlight. My finger rested on the trigger of my revolver. 5 bullets. If it came to a fight, I'd have to make every shot count. Then suddenly, another voice called from the distance. Tracks lead south. They might have doubled back after all. The man in front of us cursed under his breath. Then just like that, he turned and walked away. I waited. Counted to 10 in my head. The footsteps faded. The storm swallowed their voices. Anna let out a shaking breath, pressing a hand over her mouth like she couldn't believe we were still alive. I touched her arm gently. We move. Now. She nodded, her eyes wide but focused. I peered out of our hiding place, scanning the area. No more flashlights. No more movement. The men had moved farther south, chasing ghost footprints. Now was our chance. I grabbed Anna's hand, pulling her forward. We slipped out of the cave, crouched low, moving as fast as we could through the snow. My mind was already calculating the next move. We couldn't keep running blindly. The school in Ashley was still miles away, and my truck was useless. We needed shelter. I turned to Anna. You know anyone nearby? She shook her head. No. I wait. Her brows furrowed in thought. There's an old gas station off the highway. I remember passing it on my way here. Looked abandoned. Good enough. I tugged her forward. Let's go. We kept to the tree line, moving in the opposite direction of the search party. Every few minutes, I checked behind us, making sure we weren't being followed. After what felt like hours, though it was probably less than one, we finally saw it. A rundown gas station, barely visible through the thick snowfall. The windows were dark, the old neon sign half broken and buried in ice. We stumbled toward it, our bodies running on fumes. Anna grabbed my arm. Do you think it's safe? Nothing about tonight has been safe. I tried the door. It was locked, but the wood was old, rotted from years of exposure. I stepped back and kicked hard. The door frame splintered, and the door swung open with a groan. We stepped inside. It was cold, colder than outside somehow. The place had been gutted long ago, shelves empty, dust covering the countertops. But it was shelter. Anna collapsed onto the floor, breathing heavily. We made it. I didn't answer. Because as I looked around, my gut twisted. Something wasn't right. A pile of old cigarette butts sat in the corner. Fresh footprints in the dust. We weren't the first ones here. And we might not be alone. The gas station was supposed to be empty. It wasn't. Footprints in the dust. A cigarette still burning in the back room. Someone was here. I raised my revolver, pushing the door open. Inside, an older man sat on a crate, watching me like he'd been expecting us. A rifle lay on the floor beside him, close, but not in his hands. "You're late," he said, flicking ash from his cigarette. Anna stiffened. "What?" "They've been waiting for you," he said. "Had people watching the roads." My stomach dropped. "Who's they?" The man shrugged. "Depends who you ask. But I think she already knows." I turned to Anna. She swallowed hard. "I told you. I found something I wasn't supposed to." "That part you did mention," I muttered. The man smirked. "Name's Harris. Used to work for them. Until I saw what they do to people who ask too many questions." Before I could respond, an engine roared outside. Headlights cut through the grimy windows. Anna went pale. "They found us." I turned to Harris. "Any other way out?" "Basement hatch. Under the counter." I yanked it open. A dark tunnel stretched below. "Go," I told Anna. She climbed down without hesitation. I looked back at Harris. "You coming?" He just smiled. "Got my own business to finish." Then he picked up his rifle and walked toward the door. The second it opened, a gunshot rang out. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I dropped down into the darkness, sealing the hatch behind me. We ran. Through the tunnel. Into the snow. Toward Ashley. By the time the school came into view, one thing was clear. This wasn't over.